If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe and tap that like button. Your support helps us keep sharing incredible true stories. Today's story is one that started on a quiet winter morning, yet ended up changing everything I thought I knew about love, loss, and what it truly means to be seen. When I opened the door that day and found Ethan standing there, camera in hand and eyes steady behind the lens, something inside me shifted. It was subtle, almost invisible, a flicker I couldn't name. I didn't realize it at the time, but that single knock on my door would awaken a part of me I thought had disappeared forever. My name is Claire Miller. I'm 42 years old, living in a small, snow-draped town in New England, the kind of place where winters linger and silence settles over everything like a second skin. I used to think the most passionate chapters of my life had already been written, but that morning, blanketed in snow and stillness, would prove me wrong. Outside, the storm had turned the world into something out of a dream. White roofs, frosted trees, and a narrow road winding past my house disappeared under a layer of untouched snow. The only sound was the steady ticking of the kitchen clock. I stood by the window, a mug of tea warming my hands, and watched the flakes drift down. Fragile, flawless, endless. It had been 2 months since my son Tyler left for college. The house still echoed with the memory of his laughter, though he was miles away now. After the divorce, I told myself solitude meant peace. But lately, that peace had begun to feel like loneliness. Mark, my echoed deeper than the quiet around us, as if the camera was capturing something I hadn't shown anyone in years. Mark, my ex-husband, had been gone for a long time. First, it was emotional distance. Then one day it became physical. He left behind nothing but a polite goodbye and the faint trace of his cologne on the clothes he didn't bother to take. Love, for me, had turned into a ghost story. Something that once existed, now only haunting the edges of my memory. Until that knock. When I opened the door, there he was. Ethan, camera in hand, cheeks flushed pink from the cold. That same boyish grin I remembered lighting up his face. "Hey, Mrs. Miller," he said, his breath forming small clouds in the frosty air. I was driving by and thought I'd check in. I'm working on a new photography project. Portraits that capture real emotion. Mind if I take a few shots of you? I laughed, surprised. Me, Ethan? I'm hardly portrait material? You should find someone more interesting. He tilted his head slightly, that soft, knowing smile never fading. You're perfect for it. You've lived. And that's what I want to capture. Life that shows on the face. There was something in his tone, maybe sincerity, maybe quiet admiration, that made it impossible to refuse. So I smiled. "All right," I said. "Just don't make me look old." He grinned, teasing. "No promises." We walked toward the lake behind my house, where the snow stretched across the frozen surface like a sheet of silk. The winter light shimmered on it faintly, pale and perfect. Ethan adjusted his camera, the soft click of the lens echoing in the still air. Every so often he'd look up, his eyes sharp and focused. Too focused. "Turn your head a little," he murmured. "Yes, right there. Perfect." Each shutter click felt strangely intimate, as if with every frame he was peeling back a layer of me I'd forgotten existed. And so young to carry that kind of loss. I remembered sitting beside him back then, not saying much, just letting silence do what words couldn't. Seeing him now, older, confident, with purpose in his eyes, felt like watching a memory come full circle. Out there by the frozen lake, something inside me had shifted. With every laugh, every breath that formed clouds in the cold air, I wasn't posing anymore. I was living again, awkwardly, softly, but genuinely. Ethan lowered his camera, studying me with a gentle curiosity. "You have this look," he said quietly, "like you're remembering something beautiful." I didn't answer, but inside, I felt it. That slow, tender ache of remembering warmth I had locked away for too long. Later, we sat in the living room. The fire crackled softly, filling the room with its golden hum. Ethan opened his laptop, and when he turned the screen toward me, I froze. The woman staring back from those photos didn't look like the tired reflection I saw every morning. She looked alive. Her eyes glowed with something I hadn't seen in years. Depth, hope, maybe even a quiet joy. Her smile wasn't forced. It was real. "Do you see that?" Ethan asked, pointing at one picture. "That's you when you stop hiding." His words hit something deep within me. I realized how long I'd been living behind masks. The mother, the ex-wife, the steady friend, the woman who held everything together. Somewhere in all those roles, I'd misplaced myself. And now, this young man, my son's best friend, and was showing me a version of myself I thought was gone. I cleared my throat, trying to deflect the rising emotion. You've really grown, Ethan. These photos are beautiful. I'm proud of you. He smiled, soft and sincere. You were always kind to me, Mrs. Miller. When my mom died, you probably don't remember, but you were the only one who came by. You brought soup. You sat with me for hours. That meant something? My throat tightened as the memory resurfaced. Of course I remembered. He was 17 then, quiet, broken, grieving, and all I could do was sit beside him, hoping my presence was enough. Table beside the couch. A small flash drive left behind next to his empty mug. I picked it up, turning it between my fingers, unsure whether he'd forgotten it or left it for me on purpose. I remembered that day years ago, when Ethan was 17, lost, hollow-eyed, his world torn apart. I had held his hand and told him he wasn't alone. Now, standing in front of me, he was no longer that boy. He was a man, grounded, kind, and quietly strong. And suddenly, the space between us felt charged, different, alive. The fire snapped softly in the hearth. Ethan's gaze didn't waver when our eyes met. And neither did I, he murmured, his tone thoughtful. Then, after a pause, "Can I ask you something?" "Of course," I said, steadying my voice. "Do you ever feel like your life hasn't really started yet?" His question caught me off guard. I looked at him, unsure how to answer. "Every day," I finally whispered. He nodded slowly, his voice low but certain. "Then maybe it's time you let someone remind you how to live." Something in his tone, soft, honest, unguarded, made the world shift beneath me. My pulse quickened. I stood abruptly, pretending to fix the cushions, anything to calm the storm building inside. When I turned back, he was closer. Close enough that I could feel the warmth from the fire and from him.